Does that, and then you pass him just up to 100 metres up the road. How many we did 80 k's. Lovely wax change. No.
But look at this.
Yeah.
That's why we wax.
That's why we wax. No doubt about it, the best way to lubricate a bicycle chain is with paraffin wax. And at the moment, paraffin waxing seems to be taking over the world by storm. There's lots of people getting on the bandwagon, coming up with their own concoctions and brands, and making lots of money out of it, and good on them. Now it's interesting to note that the difference between paraffin wax lubricants today and the old traditional oil-based lubricant is quite a big difference. Waxed-based lubricants turn out to be 3, 4, 5 and even 6 times more efficient than oil-based lubricants. And out of all the waxes, paraffin wax has the lowest friction of them all. However, the difference between each individual paraffin wax lubricant on the market, there's not much difference in performance between each one. The best method of getting the paraffin wax into your chain is not with a drip lube, no, but it's with this, a hot wax bath. So inside you heat up the wax, put your chain in and immerse it for some time, and then it gets inside the links and lovely and lubricated. However, if you're doing say longer rides, then you can't really take this with you, can you, if on a 500k ride. So that's when you need a drip lube in between, very handy. So you need a bottled paraffin wax lubricant if you're doing greater than 300 kilometers. Or if you don't want to take your chain off your bike, you just want to put the lubricant on easy, give it a pedal and off you ride. So having a chain of lubricant in a bottle so it's portable and you can use it anytime really quickly is very handy, isn't it? So here's the previous DIY paraffin wax lube, here's the new one. Hardly any difference, except with the new one, when you make it, you can make it in bulk and store it in a jar. Very handy, so you don't have to keep making single use ones. You can pour it from the jar straight in there so you don't have to go through the whole process, and then off you go. Now the first thing you need is paraffin wax. You can buy it in bulk like this, in blocks, and they use it, it's a good quality one, use it in the cosmetic and the food industry. So if you want to, buy it that way, or you don't have to, you can, believe it or not, just go to your supermarket and buy ordinary, that's it, household candles. Well, this one's got a crack in it, doesn't matter, we're going to use it without the wick anyway. So don't believe all the hype you hear some people are trying to say, don't use household candles because it's full of impurities. Well, you know, we did tests many years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago when we first started the waxing of chains, and all we had was the candles, that's all we used. I got 14,500 kilometers just using the candle wax, and we had another guy recently who does a lot more riding than me, and he's got the new SRAM AXS chain, the one with the flat side on the outside. Anyway, he's got 15,000 kilometers out of his, and yes, he did use the new part tool to measure it because it requires a specific tool. Just thought I'd mention that in case someone jumps in on that one. And so he properly measured it to just over 0.5% at 15,000 kilometers.
Wow, look how shiny that chain is. Must be an expensive one. Can't be a cheap one. The paint would have come off it by now.
So candles do work. Regardless of what people say, oh, they got impurities in them and it's no good for waxing. Well, they're just trying to sell you their own wax. So go ahead if you want to use candles, perfectly okay. So grab a candle, and I use a knife or something to just scrape it with. We want to some fine scrapings, and a tray to put it in. So start scraping your candle. So this is what you get, this sort of stuff. That's all you need. Next step is get these shavings into your applicator bottle. So you take the lid off and a little nozzle, pop. And what I do is just use a funnel that fits into the bottle and just tip them into the funnel. And you might find it sits there on top. So just poke it through. This is a bicycle spoke. And just poke it through so that they go into the bottle there. All done. Get the spoke out. Right. Now, probably need a little bit more than that because there's a lot of air in between the particles, so we'll just scrape a little bit more because by the time you add the liquid, it'll shrink down. So we'll just make a little bit more. So that's about 1/3 by volume. Now, if you put too much wax in, it might not all dissolve, but that doesn't matter. You can share some of that, tip it in another applicator bottle or in a spare jar, add some more of the liquid, and that will help it dissolve. Or if you don't add enough, well, doesn't matter. You can just always add some more. So about that much. Next is to add the liquid to dissolve the paraffin wax, which is also called the transporter or the carrier. So it carries it on and into your chain. For that, we're going to use Shellite. Now, it's called Shellite in Australia. In your part of the world, it might be called naphtha. Same thing. So, we unscrew the lid, put your funnel in again, and just top up the bottle, but leave a little bit of a gap. Put on the nozzle, put on the lid, and shake it. So we need to do just a couple of seconds just to stir it up and let it sit overnight. The next day when you pick your bottle up, you'll see sediments on the bottom, or you just let it rest for a couple of hours and you'll see the sediment just like that. So the liquid up the top and the wax down the bottom. That's okay. When you shake it, it should go cloudy and you shouldn't see any bits floating around. It should be just cloudy. Now, the other thing you might want to add to this, but not crucial, is the PTFE powder, 1.6 micron. And all you really need is a couple of little pinches in there, very small amount. Remember, it's 1 to 10 parts of your paraffin wax with the PTFE powder. So just a couple of pinches in the bottle again and shake it up and you're done. If you don't want to use PTFE powder, well, that's okay. It'll work just fine as it is. So remember, this is not as good as immersing your chain in hot wax. It's an emergency lube or a lubricant when you don't want to take your chain off your bike. It'll work fine, just like all the other drip lubes out there on the market. Very simple to apply, just like every other drip lube. Shake. Using a rag stops wax getting on your bike or falling on the ground, and it cleans your chain at the same time. Note the point where you started lubricating. The removable chain link is a good starting point. Apply the solution liberally so that it gets into your chain links, not just on the outside of it. Don't worry if you use a lot of the solution, it still turns out to be way cheaper than any other wax out there. Work the wax into your chain by rotating your cranks about 20 times. And that's all there is to it, it's ready to ride. To make your wax in bulk is exactly the same as in the bottle, 1/3 in volume of the wax flakes and then your Shellite or naphtha. So now you've got your wax in an applicator bottle and in bulk. Now you're probably wondering, where do you get these bottles from? Well, I've got a pack of 10 of them from eBay, which you can get fairly cheap, or you can go to your cheap thrifty shop, your $2 shop, your reject shop, whatever you want to call it, and sometimes I've got them in the art section, in the craft section. Now, if you can't find them at all, you know what's really good is a dishwashing liquid bottle. This is a fairy liquid one, fairly squashy, and it's got a little nozzle on top, perfect for applying your liquid wax. A larger applicator bottle is going to take more liquid wax, so it's worth making the wax in bulk anyhow. Now, of course, the best way to wax your chain, and I'll say it again, is with hot wax. One of these where you heat up the wax and you put the chain in there and immerse it in there. Now, we're going to show you two ways without using one of these that is still fairly good at waxing your chain. Now the first way is with your chain off of your bike, and the second way is with your chain on your bike. So let's first tackle off of your bike. Take your chain off your bike. Now let's assuming that it's really nice and clean, or you've waxed it before and you've cleaned the outside as good as you can and still got some wax on the inside. That's fine, but you want to give it a re-wax, a good re-wax. All you do, get a container. This is just a little preserving jar, plastic jar will do, anything. Fairly wide down the bottom so that your chain goes in like that, and it's fairly flat down the bottom. If it's sticking up a bit, you're going to use a lot of liquid, so you want it fairly flat like that. Then just get your bulk wax and pour it over the top. Close the lid. Give it a 30 seconds to a minute of some swishing. Once you've done that, just let it sit for another 5 or 10 minutes and then come back and give it a little bit more of a swish. The liquid will get into the chain fairly quickly. After that, you can just pull the chain out and hang it up somewhere to dry, or put it on your bike and it'll dry on your bike. You can simply plonk it on a rag and let it dry, about 5 to 10 minutes. Another one, a Ziploc bag. You're bound to have some of these lying around the house. For this one, remove the chain from your bike. It's most likely your chain is going to be at least a little bit dirty, so give it a wipe over with a rag and the Shellite or the naphtha. Now choose a Ziploc bag that's not too big or too small. 16 centimetre by 16 centimetres is a good size. You can probably go a little bit smaller, but not overly big, because otherwise you'll be wasting a lot of your liquid wax. Put your chain in your Ziploc bag. You can put the quick link in as well if you want to, not overly necessary. Give your liquid wax a good shake and pour it in the Ziploc bag. Cover the chain. Don't fill up the bag completely. You need a bit of air in there. And just do the Ziploc bag up, lay it down flat, and let it rest for about 5 minutes so the wax gets into the chain links. After the 5 minutes, pull it out of the Ziploc bag and just put it on the rag to dry off a bit. In fact, you don't really need to. You can put it on wet as you want, straight on your drivetrain. All done, ready to ride. Just finishing off a salad. I bought it in a disposable container and comes with the lid as well, quite a good tight fit. That'll make a great container as well. Put your chain in and the Shellite or naphtha and use that to clean your chain. So if you're out and about and you need a container, even one of these disposable ones where you buy some meals in, that'll do perfect as well. Second way, when you want to re-wax your chain without taking the chain off of your bike, get yourself a microfiber cloth and clean your chain first. Now microfiber cloths are really good for that. Now what can help is a wax and grease remover. Spray some of that on there, or even the Shellite itself or the naphtha. Put some of that on the cloth and give your chain a good wipe as best you can. You don't want any dirt or foreign debris combining with the liquid wax that you're going to put on and getting into your chain. So clean it as best you can, and then get one of these. Everyone's seen one of these, a little clip-on brush chain cleaner. Yep, these are only really cheap. That's all you need, $5 from AliExpress or wherever. And then get your liquid wax, give it a good shake, and tip as much as you can in there. Clip it onto your chain and hold it, and then just rotate the chain. You probably get some dripping out, that's fine. About 20 revolutions. Once you finish, you take it off and your chain has been re-waxed. And left over in there will be dirty liquid wax. You don't want that. Throw it out as soon as you can, because otherwise the carrier is going to evaporate and leave wax in your cleaner. It's going to be hard to clean. So throw it out while it's liquid and then give it a swish again with the Shellite to clean it out completely. nice and clean. Of course, the lazy way, or the way most people are going to use, is the applicator bottle. Just drip it on or wipe it on, just the same as every other bottled lube. Works just the same. Now, if you have any doubts about this wax lube actually working because it hasn't been laboratory tested, no, it hasn't been laboratory tested. But what it has been is tested over the last 7 to 8 years by real bike riders in real conditions, all sorts of conditions. We have over 30 riders down here riding this wax, and no problems. We've tested it out. Not only that, all you people out there in the world, on the interweb, who've gone ahead and made this homemade wax for yourselves, the immersive and the drip lube, have found it successful. Those who haven't quite got it right, having a little bit of trouble, the majority seems to be because the chain hasn't been prepped properly, hasn't been cleaned properly before you wax. Once you clean your chain properly, so it's perfectly clean, then you can wax your chain, whether it's the hot wax or the drip lube wax, or both. So go ahead, don't be afraid. It's definitely been tested by real bike riders and it's doing its job properly, I guarantee you. Well, that's it. No excuses now. It's easier than ever to make your own paraffin wax lubricant. And it's going to cost you pennies compared to those self-claiming super lubes out there on the market. This is Ben. He rides a lot and he's just got, he's trying something new. He's got a 11-speed SRAM E-tap and bought a Chinese jockey wheel ceramic bearing and some different chain rings. Got a big ride coming up later on next year, but he's been waxing his chain for I don't know how long, a year, 2, 3?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years, yeah. And one of the rides he did, what was it, 500 Ks?
500, yeah.
500 Ks in one ride. On one wax chain. Just waxed it and did the whole thing. How long did it take?
22, 23 hours. A couple of hours of stopping in there, had some lunch.
Yeah.
Some lunch and a rest and a chat.
And it rained as well.
Yeah. Wet and cold.
There you go. So you can get 500 Ks. Don't recommend it, 300 at the most. But he's stretching it, sounds like he did 500 Ks on a wax chain. Anyway, make your wax.